No, currently in Manhattan. Yep.
Dude, that's so crazy, dude. Manhattan's like that's like a peak, like in terms of like energy and like things to do. Like that's like peak energy, dude. Like there's no other spot, you know. Like we got all these big cities around the world. Like people love to live in Paris. They love to live in, Dubai is a famous city, but like New York is like the real shiny city on the hill, man. So that's really cool that you're just doing that.
It's cool. I mean, it's really awesome. Like right now across the street from me, I have probably 9 different businesses: Chinese restaurant, a Turkish business, a Korean fried chicken spot, a sushi spot. The accessibility is amazing. I can walk 10 minutes and get an incredible black and white cookie, like an unbelievable cappuccino, or be near Central Park. So it's definitely true. It is an
Yeah.
amazing city. My wife really did sell me on it. She's a warrior. Where are you based out of?
I'm in LA right now, but
Oh,
I grew
nice. You're in LA.
yeah, but I grew up in like the southern part. I was born in Vegas. I grew up in southern Arizona, and then I moved out in LA in 2017. So
Nice. Okay. So you said you were born in Vegas or you lived in Vegas?
born in Vegas, lived there for a year, and then my parents moved us down to Arizona because my dad got a
Where?
job. The town called Queen Creek.
Queen Creek. Is that in Sedona or no?
No, it's like 3 hours south of Sedona, like an hour south
Nowhere
of
near
Sedona.
Sedona.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
nowhere near Sedona.
So
But
I really Scottsdale, Sedona, just classic. I don't know anything about Arizona, but the major spots. But I was in Sedona. I loved it.
when were you there?
I was there. I feel like I was there like probably like a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Sedona's perfect, dude. I went there. I always try to go out there when it like feels right. Before I moved out here, I took a Sedona trip with a couple of buddies of mine,
Mhm.
and that was just it was like a random like just impromptu thing for us to do, and one of the biggest like very impactful just like moments with my friends, just like moments in nature with me out there. So I like Sedona's like it's weird how it's magic. Did you
Yeah.
feel that?
Well, they say that in Sedona, underneath the surface, of course, they have
Hmm.
like Galactic Federation bases, and that
Do you believe that?
also I do. But I believe things a little too deeply sometimes. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure I could be catfished, but
Yeah.
what I've read is that there are vortex points over there, and most people just think it's like due to the way like the plates shift or how the water runs or whatever other
Hmm.
lame scientific explanations there are. But to my understanding, it's because there are crystals underneath there, and the crystals were placed there by extraterrestrials. So when you're out there and you're walking amongst the different vortex areas, they say you're meant to feel energy. It was funny because I booked this like pink Jeep tour. I guess it's like a popular thing to do out there,
Oh yeah.
and I specifically booked the spiritual one. I was like, I just want to go deep in nature, and be guided by someone like a shaman, ideally, to
Hmm.
take me to these places to feel what it is. And then the guy like did not have an ounce of spirituality to him. He was like, "This stuff's real woo woo, man. Not really my style, brother." I'm like, "What the heck? Like, why are you leading this tour?" Um, but it was a great time out there. I saw a medium out there as well, which is a really cool experience.
Really, yeah, I've never met with a medium. That was a
What? That's
never.
crazy.
I know I should probably.
Never?
Well, I'm sort of planning on meeting with one. I have cousins in Vegas, and one of them wanted to hook me up with their friend who's a medium. And so next time I go to Vegas, I'll probably talk to one then. But what was that experience like for you?
I feel like that's the gateway. I mean, I feel like kind of
Mm.
like how I set up my podcast is like, here are the steps you must go through to go from not believing at all to believing. And for me, the first time I saw a medium was actually during the pandemic. The reason I saw a medium was because my wife was speaking to a medium actually. And during that session, the medium started talking about me. And it's funny that we're here now because years and years ago, if you told me I was on a podcast talking about aliens, mediums, I just would have assumed something went horribly wrong with my life. Like he really ended up in the loony bin, didn't he? So it's quite the transformation over time. But while my wife was meeting with the medium, she started talking about me and a lot of health issues I was having at the time. I was having a lot of stomach issues. I was working like a really stressful sales job. Probably wasn't eating that well. Definitely wasn't eating that well. And I just thought it was trippy that she was talking about me, but also still wasn't like quite convinced. And then
Mhm.
my wife, who is quite spiritual, convinced me to see that same medium. And that experience was like extremely mind blowing because a lot of the things that we discussed about my family, about my deceased grandfather, about the history of my family, it's not Googleable. It's not things we even really talk about. A lot of it dates back to like my grandfather being like a Holocaust survivor. Like my dad didn't like to talk about that stuff.
Wow.
So that like was really shocking to me because if this person knows these intimate details about my life that I don't share with anybody and neither does my family, and if these things aren't available online, then how the fuck do you know that? And I think
Mhm.
that was sort of the sort of like 180 transformation of like I don't know shit. And
Mhm.
everything I'm going to do moving forward when I have free time is going to be understanding as much about this as humanly possible. So that
Mhm.
really was the gateway. So to me, you have to be careful because there's so many frauds out there, so many frauds, and I've been duped by some myself. But I have great suggestions, and a lot of them do online as well. I don't
Mhm.
even know what the medium looks like. The first one I ever met with, it was all over the phone. I couldn't even
Yeah.
identify her in a police lineup, but she changed my life,
Wow.
which is kind of crazy to think. And you know, someone who's a medium, probably a starseed too, because
Mhm.
can't be talking to the dead if you're human. You know, how's that
Mhm.
possible?
That's really interesting, dude. So okay, so the reason why I wanted to talk to you is because of your podcast. So that medium
Sure,
experience,
yeah, I appreciate it, and
dude, your
thank you for having me. By the way, I appreciate it, man.
of course, for some reason it just felt right. You know, some things just like feel right when you ask a
Sure,
person something. So I just wanted to lean into that instinct. But your podcast is hilarious, dude.
thank
It's
you. I
super
appreciate it.
funny.
Thanks.
I'm not one to like listen to like a lot of spiritual podcasts. Like there's like a few that like, or I guess there's a few like individuals that I like listening to, but at the same time, it's not always like they're not always giving like they're not entertaining or they're like talking about something
Mhm.
that doesn't resonate with me too much. But your
Sure,
stuff is actually funny and it's entertaining and
thank you.
you've been focusing on a lot on what Cabe has been posting on Twitter, which I also
Yeah,
think is
yeah.
really
Love
interesting.
him.
Yeah,
Love him.
like so tell me how like the medium experience leads to the podcast, but when did you start following Cabe on Twitter?
I don't know if it's pronounced Cabe or Cobb. I'm used to calling him Cobb, so if it's Cabe, I've totally been blowing it.
I say Cabe because I'm an American, so I'm just gonna put everything with a short A.
No, I like it. I mean, I would say after the medium, and then I'll get to Cobb if you don't mind me calling. I'm just so that's
Sure.
just
Yeah,
ingrained in
Cobb.
my DNA. That'd be like calling my dad Dade. You know what I mean? Like it's just I can't wrap my head around that. Um, I kind of like first got introduced to aliens through. Have you ever heard of J3 Films? They like got really famous for a movie they made called Extraordinary the Stan Romanek Story. That was later debunked as not being true. But I had not seen anything like alien related at all. So it was like in the
Mhm.
middle of the pandemic. I watched that documentary, and although a lot of it was embellished, I was introduced to the concept of the Greys, and they later came out with a movie called Extraordinary the Seeding, which is again about like abductions and stuff like that, which I do feel is like less important, and that's something that Cobb talks about a lot. That the Greys are sort of like pawns in the whole thing, whereas a lot of people make them out to be these remarkable gods. They're really more like I don't know, lame ass chess pieces. But I didn't know that, so I got like really, really obsessed with it. Um, then later on with Cobb, honestly, I hopped onto Twitter. I don't even really know why, but I started coming across his posts, and he was posting like a lot of conspiracy theory stuff, like really out there stuff, like stuff about clones, stuff about like like the high level like Diddy freak off stuff, like dark shit, which
Mhm.
clearly the algorithm like understood me very quickly. But he also would post like UFO videos that I was seeing like in the online sphere. And he would just say some crazy shit. He'd be like, this craft is being operated by a Syrian extraterrestrial that is 7 feet tall and has an elongated head, confirmed by my Pleiadian brother who's not incarnated. And you kind of read that, you're like, what on earth are you fucking saying? Like, what? That's the craziest thing. That's the craziest sentence I ever read in my life. Clearly, you're severely mentally unwell. On the flip side of that, I was like utterly captivated by like everything he said. And it's funny, very briefly, the other night, my wife and I were having a conversation, and one thing I don't like about like people on the internet in general with alien stuff is I don't like when people act like they're oracles or like they
Mhm.
have insider information or like they know stuff. It's one thing if you're like a huge part of like the United States government and you've seen like stuff like Bob Lazar, for example, or Lazar, I don't know how to pronounce it. But there's just like random people on Twitter that are like fellow starseeds. I have the answers. And it's like, no, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
but my wife was kind of saying to me, she was like, you know, you're putting a lot of stake into this Cobb guy. Like, you've never seen him in person. He's never done video. He's never done audio. Apparently, a lot of what he gets is from his mother, who you've never seen. Like, I'm not saying he's not legit, but you are getting a lot of information from him. And I was like, that's fair. Like, I've gone pretty deep down this rabbit hole, haven't I? Like, if he's not legit, I'm pretty screwed, huh?
Mhm.
Which is part of also why I think it's a little difficult for me to promote my podcast sometimes because like I don't even fully believe it sometimes. But anyway, we had this like whole conversation about that, and it's fair what she's saying. It's totally fair. I mean, you know, my wife is clearly my better half, and then we get home and I look out my window and I posted this on my Twitter. I don't know if it's legit or not, but I was like, that might be a fucking UFO. And I was like, are these things connected? You know, are the Palladians like, no, it is legit, brother, you know, and we're right here just to prove it to you. So I don't know. But the way I got into Cobb, just to answer that, and sorry for so many parts of that answer, is really just being captivated by somebody so confidently posting things that were so out there, unfamiliar, and unique to me. That's really the answer.
Yeah. Was that during COVID or is that like in the last year and a half? Like, is this like post Elon buying Twitter?
Trying to think of the timeline. I feel like it probably started like I mean, I feel like I really got the idea for my podcast probably like 2, 2.5 years ago. I actually recorded a season with like a bunch of guests, but I was like super, super inexperienced with like audio and stuff like that. And I didn't really like how it sounded. So I
Mhm.
trashed a lot of that. And then right around that time when I was like, let me like take a pause on this and recalibrate, I discovered a lot of his stuff. And he sort of became like a version of like a check mark for me. Let me go do a little bit of research. Let me get an idea about what he is saying about it, this alleged starseed, and if he's an alien, literally, and if he's getting this information from like his alien family, surely there can be no better resource than that. Obviously, it could be AI generated too. That thought always goes in the back of my head, but for some reason, I've just always found myself like magnetically attracted to that information. I don't know why. Like a fly, you know, like a fly going to a light.
Mhm. Yeah, it's strange because I've had a similar experience with his posts, and I was looking back a little bit ago trying to figure out like when did I really start to see his posts, and I had a very similar experience as you did. I just sort of saw something that he posted, and then I just kept reading. I was like, what is this guy saying? And it was like extremely detailed and straightforward, and not seeking to like there's so many like disclosure type posts that are like try to paint fear around what we
Yes,
don't know.
yes, yes,
And nothing that he was posting was saying like they've been lying to you or something like that.
yes, yeah,
Or it's like, what's suspicious about this picture? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
I hate those type of posts. And he
Me
was
too.
so clear with his words. And
Yes.
I think I found him around like October 2023, I think is when
Mhm.
I started to read his stuff. And like I always think about maybe it could be fake, but he's
Right.
also the only it seems to be the only one who has like a clear answer. If it's not the answer, it's a clear answer. And it's actually something to actually go off of and to actually discuss, which I think is more valuable than anything else. Because so many other people who are in the disclosure space, whether it be someone from the government or someone who might have worked on some secret project, they're always like, I don't know what I saw, but this is weird. And it's like
Right.
that doesn't help us. That doesn't do anything. And if there are stories of like our past government officials having discussions with these beings and making secret deals, whether it be nefarious or positive,
Mhm.
like I would rather know that information than be strung along with what have they been lying me to? Like it's so strange. So I've always appreciated Cabe for what he's done in that sense. And I don't think it's AI personally. I feel like I know when something is written by AI the key thing is whenever you read, it's not just a computer, it's a tool to expand yourself or something like that. It's always like, it's not just this, it's this. Like there's like that similar sentence in all these AI
Mhm,
written things. So that's just like a little thing that I've identified.
mhm.
Um, did you like think about souls and aliens as the same way? Because that was sort of an unlock for me when I was reading Cabe. Like in my own head and in my own words, I've replaced the word alien with soul. Was that something
Mhm.
that happened with you as well, or how did you rethink that relationship?
It's an interesting question. I mean, that does remind me like of the kind of like conceptual idea of a starseed, right? This is like an alien that has chosen to forget their life to live a life as a human or theoretically as another race on another planet that's of like a quote unquote lower vibration to learn lessons, to see what it's like to not be perfect. And then it's kind of trippy to think that, if you are a star seed, like theoretically, if I was a star seed or you were a star seed, when you die, you wake up and you're just back in your backyard on your alien planet. Hey, honey, work trip was pretty good. Good to be back. Like that's sort of like the trippiest virtual reality game ever. I think I think when I think about the soul, I think more about like death, and when you die, it's obviously just the beginning, and you sort of have, from what I've read, I've not experienced this, of course, you have like an evaluation, if you will, where you kind of look at your life and the mistakes you made and maybe things you could have done differently, and you reunite, with people that passed. And then it's quite crazy to think that you then gear up to do it again. I mean, according to the family of Tegeta, because I did like a soul reading with Judith, which I talk about later in one of my episodes. I've lived, according to her, 582 lives. I don't know if that's true, obviously. Um, but for my wife's birthday a couple years ago, I got her a past life regression, and she like didn't enjoy it. My wife's like very my wife like probably is like a medium, like if she wanted to be, but I
Mhm,
think is like as that stuff gets closer to her, she like pushes it away because it's like a lot of energy.
mhm,
Um, she's almost like the type, like if we went to like a dog adoption event, and she's like couldn't handle it. Like she's just like too empathetic for like the
yeah,
dogs. You know what I mean? It's like very like would love to have a dog, but like very upset by the fact that these like animals don't have a home. And I was too, of course, but like her empathy was like needing to step away for a second because she was like absorbing that emotion. But she got the past life regression, and obviously it could all be um bullshit. But we always have this joke that like of who dies first in our relationship. So we would always say like she would always say like I have to die first because like I can't handle. Sounds so fucking corny, but like it's a joke. It's like a bit we do. We're not like some lame Romeo and Juliet. I promise. She's like I would die first. You're hanging back. Sorry, buddy. That's like over beers we would say that. But then she got the regression, and according to her, during the regression, she saw us together in a past life and me witnessing her death and me being extremely upset about it. Naturally speaking, I'm sure I was a great guy in that past life. And
mhm,
so she came back and she was like, all right, you can die first. Like that was like the joke that came from it. So, they
wow,
do say that you also incarnate in life repeatedly with people like tribes. Like you've incarnated in the past. I know you talked about your mom recently in one of your podcasts. Like presumably
mhm,
you guys have been together through more than one life. I think with my sister or people who you like have like strong reactions to, like I love my sister to death, but she drives me like out of my fucking mind. I mean, we're like oil and water. So like I'm sure that there's a reason that she does that, because she's meant to mirror something or teach me a lesson as I am to her. And throughout lifetimes and generations, I guess you stick together with these people. So I guess I think of the soul as this like, we kind of sort of corresponded about this on Twitter, but I strongly dislike two things. One, I dislike negativity when it comes to extraterrestrials. I really don't like it. I think that's like kind of lame. And you're right. It's like so many people in the space are like in a world, where something terrible, like it's not a
mhm,
horror movie. So I don't like that. And then I also don't like this bullshit about it's a trap. We're
Yeah.
trapped on like just stop it with that. This like victim, it's very negative, you know, and you're
Mhm.
not going to progress spiritually as a person if you think that way.
Or show me how to get
So
free. Like, if you think it's a trap, show me
yeah,
how to free myself. Like, do it. I double dog dare you to get out of
yeah,
the trap, dude.
yeah. Good luck with that one. Um,
Exactly.
but so yeah, so I guess I don't know. The soul is just I hear the word container in my head because that's how people think about it sometimes, but it's not
Mhm.
that to me. It's just this sort of like godlike part of us that, is
Mhm.
all knowing and kind of puts us in these different situations to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up Christian, and so the idea of the soul for me, it was never really clearly defined. It was always just like an essence, something to just go to heaven. And
Mhm.
within the Christian narrative, it's always about like your flesh is sinful and your soul needs to be saved. And something that has been sort of an unlock for me spiritually from reading Cabe has been like just like it's like the opposite. It's like your soul is influencing your life, and within some religious narratives, it's your physical life that influences your soul, even though
Mhm.
your soul is from God and your soul is a higher version of yourself. Somehow, this flesh has like dominion over where your soul goes, heaven or hell,
Mhm.
and so like that's been like um, a very comforting thing to like to think about. Like there's actually a purpose. Like God's plan for my life is actually my plan because my
Mhm.
soul is of God. And so that's just been like a real like big thing for me in the last couple of years, just thinking about the plan, God's plan, like how do we engage with other souls that might be visiting with us. And that just like the whole there's like a victim mentality that's online,
Mhm.
and there's a victim mentality when it comes to these subjects of aliens and UFOs and life on Earth. And I think there's a big parallel between science and religion, between like the victim mentality, like the Christian narrative that I grew up in is like there's like an original sin, and like we are inherently sinful. And then like on the science side, it's everything is random and there's only death. And it's like those two things are sort of paralleling to me in my head. And but like they're in the middle, what I think is as truth now is that there's actually a plan and there's actually light, and the purpose of life is to learn lessons and to not just learn lessons, but learn lessons from your relationships. There's a purpose for your relationships and all these things, like you were saying about like your sister, you and your sister being water and oil. That's a great concept. But you mirror each other and you learn these lessons, and there's a purpose for this. Um, so yeah, that's cool that you have that mindset, man. Um, so do you like? So you're a believer that there is a galactic federation. You really think that there's Pleiadians in the UFOs. Did that like was that an instant belief, or was there a gradual change in your thinking?
I mean, I think, there again, there always is like the skeptical side, right? Like, I don't know if you ever see the show Catfish, but like
Hmm.
people fall in love in these relationships and they think that they're dating this beautiful human being on the other side of the internet. And it
Hmm.
turns out to be untrue. I think that the low vibe, fear does exist of like, what if I'm being fed a false narrative? And then what does that say about me? Because in terms of like conspiracy theorists, like people who listen to conspiracy theories, tout conspiracy theories, which is me. I do that. Often take solace in the idea that maybe they know something other people don't. Maybe they do have some sort of extra wisdom. Maybe they see things that other people don't, or sort of have this inherent knowledge of like, the world doesn't turn as we think it does. So I think that there is always that, little buzz in my head because I haven't necessarily had I've had light bulb moments, but I haven't had like there's a UFO saucer hovering outside of my apartment building. I've traveled into astral and I've seen things in person. I haven't had somebody come to me in my dreams that passed away to speak to me. I haven't necessarily had like a super, super, super obvious, like, this is undeniable. However, I have had a lot of, like, similar to that medium experience, strange, thought provoking, interesting, fascinating moments. And arguably the medium experience I had, since it was ungoogleable, does sort of classify as that. But I think for me, I am very much intrigued by the concept and have explored so much of the idea, for example, that Pleiadians are these benevolent, angelic, godlike, incredibly good looking extraterrestrials that look over humanity and have been with us for, millennia. I am interested in that. I am interested in the idea that it isn't just Pleiadians, but it's Syrians, it's reptilians or Orions, it's Andromedans, it's Arcturians that are, 9 foot tall blue aliens. I think I'm like super deep in all that stuff. I'm super deep in the idea of like, then who are some of these aliens that have incarnated to Earth, to sort of represent these races? Like, that's the depth with which I've gone as well, because I've probably tried to read every tweet that Cabe has ever sent out. So I've read things like Jim Morrison was a star seed, Prince was a star seed.
Mhm.
I've read things like Elon Musk is the reincarnated Nikola Tesla.
That's my favorite
Um,
one. That's my favorite
yeah,
one. Like,
that one's crazy.
crazy.
It's insane. It's completely insane, but I love it. So, I mean, and I've read about the good ones and I've read about the bad ones. I mean, I've read theories that, like, Ellen DeGeneres is a star seed, but not a good person. I've read
Mhm,
theories that Obama is a star seed and not a good person. I mean, I voted for Obama when I was younger. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So you kind of just go through this trial and tribulation in your head of like, what's real and what's not real. But I think that where I constantly find myself coming back to as I sort of wrestle with those thoughts and then meet people like you seem to have similar thoughts is like, there's something here. Are we all fucking crazy? Maybe. But is there something really going on here? And I do think that, like, as time goes on, I mean, obviously, a concept Cobb talks a lot about is the shift, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Oh,
And this
yes.
sort of, like Thanos snapping his finger concept, but in a positive way. Like,
Mhm.
all of a sudden, as Earth comes to this sort of grand moment of just not grand, but sort of disastrous, apocalyptic, things are not going well, then in an instant we're kind of going to be yanked out and put to a new planet. That sounds great. Who doesn't love that idea? But at the same time, like, being of sane mind, I hope that also is like a little challenging to swallow. So I think I live on both sides of it, but I'd be lying to you if I said I stopped contributing to my 401k at work, because I was like, I'm not going to need it. I'm not going to be around here when I'm 60. You know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
think there are times when I'm like super, super deep in it. And I'm like, this stuff is legit. Like I do. And then I think there are other times when I'm like, well, hold on a second, like what true proof do I have? I think I go much further down the rabbit hole in the classic proofers that, guys on like Reddit or like the communities I kind of like check out. It's like they see anything, like anything that resembles evidence, and they're like, that's bullshit. That you're a fraud. And it's like, how are we supposed to make any progress at all if
Mhm.
everything we ever see is bullshit? So, but to me, it's also, and not to go super off, like people that are waiting for a disclosure from the government sometimes feel kind of silly to me, because it's like they've been hiding this shit forever. What,
Yeah.
what are you expecting to hear from the government? Who cares what they have to say?
Yeah.
That's why when you have these alleged star seeds, these people that can talk to the dead, these people that can allegedly channel extraterrestrials like a Bashar, I'm far more intrigued to listen to those folks
Mhm.
who seem to have this, not human like ability than some random dude from the United States government that might have a script in front of him that's being told to communicate to us a certain way. Anyway, that was like 4,000 concepts to explore. But, I always say to people, don't get me started.
No, dude, it's such a rabbit hole, and it's connected to everything. It's connected to how you see life. It's connected to how you grew up. It's connected to what's going on in the modern world. It's connected to what happened in the ancient world. This concept and the things that he's posting about it's incredibly deep. It's incredibly sprawling, and it touches every corner. So it's like I understand that because like I go through these loops in my head as well because like I'm thinking about the ancient civilization conversations and I'm thinking about religious conversations and I'm thinking about conversations with my mom and I'm thinking about conversations with my boss and it's like all these things are like disconnected and intertwined at the same time. It sort of stresses me out sometimes because it's like, what are the answers?
Yeah.
But I've been taking more solace in this, in like how to like live my life, and I've been really trying to lean into like inner peace and like meditating. Excuse me, meditating on inner peace and um, gratitude and compassion and these things. And I've been getting into this thing called brain heart coherence. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. That's like a type of meditation where when you put attention on your heart, more information comes from your heart than your brain magnetically and energetically. And so like that's like one way you can like align yourself with spirit, is when you focus on your heart and meditate on these emotions, these positive emotions within your heart. And that overlaps with people like Buddha and Jesus and what their real teachings were, of like how to live a good life. And so have you thought about that side of things at all throughout this journey? Like because when it comes to spirituality, it's not just aliens; it's also how you think about your own spirit and your own calmness. Like what is your own? If you want to be open about it, what's your own like
Yeah. Yeah.
spirituality or spiritual practice?
Yeah. I mean, I would say part of this journey also, and part of why I named my podcast the Spiritual Skeptic, is because the spiritual component like just became so important to me. I also think that my father passed in 2022,
Mm,
and his death was hard on me, especially because he was sort of like a disintegration, if you will. Like he just like was in poor health for a while, and I was sort of always taking care of him. And I saw a medium because I was actually in Las Vegas when he had gotten taken to the hospital, and my dad had sort of gotten to this point where um, he would he was bipolar, so most of the time he was like super depressed, and then when the manic side came out, or like the up of bipolar, if you will, it would usually escalate to the point of like him going to the hospital or him getting into a car accident, him just doing something crazy, losing control. And my father was a physician, so he was the one managing his own medication, which
mm,
is dangerous. You have a guy who's really smart managing his own medication, mentally unwell, alone in a house, divorced. My sister was traveling at the time. She was like living in Vietnam. So it was really just me about an hour away coming back to take care of him. So when he went to the hospital when I was in Vegas, like obviously there's one party that's like, get on a plane right now and go home, like immediately. Like you got to go take care of him. The other part is like, this is routine. And thank God he's in the hospital because you can't hurt yourself in the hospital. I'll be home tomorrow kind of vibe. I came back the next day. I spoke to my dad on the phone. COVID was tough around that time still. He had contracted COVID. So they were like, don't come in, don't visit him. And then he died that night. So that was obviously very upsetting because you have the guilt of like, I should have been there. So then when I saw a medium, she said to me, she was like, your father is telling me you could have been there every single day. You could have been there from morning to night. You could have showed up 30 days in a row. It would not have made a difference. I was ready to go. I wanted to die. And that was probably one of the most important things I ever heard in my life. I needed to hear that because I had this immense guilt that, I should have been there for him. So I think from the spiritual side, one of the, like stepping back a little bit, like one of the first books, but that experience makes you spiritual because you understand there's a higher power. You understand that my father underwent a rebirth. You understand that me and my dad were meant to meet and have this experience together, and I was meant to grow that way. I was meant to feel the pain that I felt, and he was meant to have the story that he had. Of course, it was a tragic one, and I didn't want it to end that way, but you have to believe everything happens for a reason, right? But hearing that from the medium just gave me this belief in just like something bigger, which I needed to have. I grew up in a very like black and white family. Like my family, we were Jewish, but there was no like life after death. There was no like real conversations around that ever. My mom is like a really practical person. Um, but I first got into spirituality. Like there was this book that came out called You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. I forget the second part of it. It might be Sincero, but
I think my mom reads that book. I see that book above my
yeah,
mom's toilet all the time.
it's like it's a great spot to have a book. I have many. Um, Super popular book, and there was this one part that I liked her because she was very funny. Like I thought that was, and that's one thing I try to bring to the alien conversation when I can. I try to bring humor. It's always so serious all the time. You know what I mean? It's like we got to laugh. But in her book, she said something like she was like living in like Texas or Tennessee, I forget where, and they were doing line dancing, and she thought it was like really stupid. But then like she got a pair of cowboy boots, and then she got a cowboy hat, and then next thing you know, she was like dancing her like achy breaky heart out every week. And she kind of compared that to spirituality. She was like, it's the same way. It's like it doesn't happen overnight, but if you do bit by bit, piece by piece, suddenly you can get really into this thing. And I just thought that was such a cool way to describe it and so digestible versus like other stuff that hadn't resonated with me the same. Or maybe I wasn't ready to hear it at the time. So the first thing to me that kind of came into play then was like manifesting of like I'd seen my wife manifest. Like I'd witnessed it like before me. She's like a very optimistic, positive, hardworking person. And like I'd see her set goals and accomplish them. She has something like she's a musician, Ali Schwartz, shameless plug. She has like 12 million streams on Spotify. She's released songs that have like over a million streams. It's unbelievable. And I've seen her manifest partnerships and opportunities just by putting the thought out there. So to me, like the first thing was just like manifesting. Like we used to joke like in New York City, like sometimes like you sit at a table and you're fucking on top of people. And like I don't like too much noise. Like I don't really like hearing everything someone's saying next to me. Like I need
Mhm.
like just a little bit of space to enjoy comfortably. But in New York, it's like you're crammed the fuck in. So we would always joke like I'd manifest in advance, like we're gonna get a sick table, like we're just gonna get the best fucking table in the house, and then it just became like a theme in our relationship. Like I was always just really good at making sure we got sick tables, and that was something we would always say, like it's gonna be perfect. So I think as far as my spiritual practice, I mean, obviously, like I meditate, I try to do that daily. I really try to think positive. I mean, even for this man, even for this like opportunity for this moment, like I've been saying in my head forever, the podcast is going to blow up. I don't know when, I don't know how, but people are going to listen to it. They're going to enjoy it. They're going to laugh. They're going to resonate. I don't know where they are. I don't know who they are, but I'm going to find an audience, and that's going to be my people, and that's going to be my community. I've been saying that forever. I say it in the shower. I say it in the mirror. I say it while I'm getting dressed in the morning. I just always say that. Obviously, I have my moments where I'm feeling down, where I feel like I wish I was getting more downloads. Who doesn't have that? But I just try to constantly put that positivity out there. Then the other day, I said, let me change it. I'm going to say, in the short term, people are going to start listening to it. People are going to start discovering it. People are going to start loving it. That fucking next day, you messaged me and you say, dude, I fucking love your podcast. It's hilarious. You should come on my show sometime. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
I think if you put positive thoughts out there, good things come back to you. So I think that's a big part of my spiritual journey overall, because I was not always like that. I used to be negative, moody, of course that would happen to me kind of
Mhm.
guy. My wife is SpongeBob, I'm Squidward kind of vibe, honestly. Like that's just the truth. Just a negative Nancy. And God bless her for the years she stayed with me as I was sort of just always, moody. And also in, relationships, I joke around sometimes like 99% of fights happen when people are hungry. No one's nice when they're hungry. But hunger aside, hopefully that gives you some insight. But then for me, it's like the stuff that really like opened up my soul, opened up my mind, opened up my heart were those mediumship experiences. I've seen some really cool like tarot card readers as well. There's a woman like 20 blocks up from me here on 92nd and Second. Her name's Veronica. She's a tarot reader, and I saw her recently, and she's really good, but she keeps it fucking real. Like she tells you how it is, and she brings a couple cards out. She looks at me, and the session just started. We're like 2 minutes in, and she just starts making chicken noises, "Buk, buk, buk, buk," just right in my face. I'm like, "The fuck are you doing?" And she goes, I know you have your little podcast. And she's like, and you too chicken shit to promote it. And I was like, I mean, obviously she could have Googled my podcast. That's fine. but she couldn't have known I was scared to promote it. She couldn't have known that like I wasn't like posting about it online all the time. She couldn't have known that. 2 seconds in, just chicken noises, and she's pulling these different cards and she's telling me stuff about my mom and how she's doing, talking to me about my sister, talking to me about my relationship with my wife. She doesn't know this stuff, So I think to me, it's just like an overall understanding of like there's so much I don't know, and I'm a student ultimately. I just want to learn as much as I can. Yeah, so I'd say that's a TLDR, which is a long TLDR.
No, dude, it's that shit's powerful, dude. What you said about your dad is really impactful to me because my dad died coming up on 10 months
Sorry.
ago, last
Oh
August.
man, very sorry.
So
That's very recent.
yeah, it's still super fresh, and so I'm just been moving towards it. I feel like I've been doing my best to like identify like where I'm at in like the grief stages.
Yeah,
Just trying to
yeah, of course.
be aware of that, and and that's happening while I'm working and meditating and stuff like that. So I think like right now you're sort of getting me in like I think I've been in like the depression stage for a minute. Nothing too crazy, like nothing
No, I
like
get it.
super down, 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 but like I still have motivation to work out and things like this. But just like, the overall feeling of just like sadness or lowness or, just sort of burnt out. Just sort of moving through that motion. So that's like and my dad's death, super impactful. That's like year zero. That's like that's what are they called? 9/11, ground zero.
Right, 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 right.
That's ground zero for my spiritual
Hmm.
journey in this era, dude, because I was present for the last week of his life. He had cancer,
Hmm.
and it was it was just a surreal moment. It was so crazy, just to see the continued deterioration of the body, and then like when the moment happened, it was just like the it was like devastating and holy at the same time. And
Hmm.
so I've sort of that's been like a big thing for me, just like thinking about that night, thinking about that moment. And I actually have had him come in my dreams since then. And
That's dope.
that's been a big, big impact on my spiritual journey. He hasn't said anything to me. Um, but there's been moments where I just sort of see him standing. He's like
Hmm.
standing in the kitchen of my childhood home and just like smiling at me. But the biggest thing that happened to me that really made me, I don't know, just like trust that my spiritual journey is like authentic is I had this dream. It was like September, I think. So he died in August. I'm waking up or I'm sleeping in September, right? And I have this dream where I'm in my childhood home and I'm standing in my living room and I see him sitting on the couch, just casual. And but I'm aware that he's dead, right? And I know that like this is a different entity. This is different, but it's my dad. And I go over to him. Sorry, I'm not crying. I'm like I'm getting over a cold. I sound
Not crying, bro. All right.
cool.
Got
It's
something in both my eyes.
but I go over to him and I sit on the couch and I see him how I like remember him as, and that was like in his mid 30s when I was like a little child. So he's like fresh, like he looks good. And I say to him, I just want to feel you touch my back. And then I'm sort of like laying on my stomach on the couch in front of him. And then I physically felt his hand on my back. And
Mhm.
then the moment he touches me, I'm feeling electricity in my back. And it's like in my mid back, right? I'm feeling like shock in my mid back. And I'm like twitching, I'm like convulsing in the dream. And then before I knew it, I'm waking up in real life and I'm actually like convulsing in real life. My body is like shaking and my
Damn.
back is spasming and I'm like dry heaving like
Mm.
and I'm just like what the I wake up and I'm like what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And I didn't expect it to happen, of course, and it took like 5 minutes for my body to calm down and I'm just sort of just like stretching out my back a bit, like, holy shit, what is going on with that? And,
Right.
that made me really believe that I had a real encounter with the soul.
Right.
And just the whole concept of like the soul being real, they're like our souls coming from other places, that was a big signal to me that everything that I've been reading from Cabe was real and authentic. Because um if souls are real and they can interact with me like that, what else is real?
Mhm.
Maybe there's other souls on other planets. Maybe everything he's been sharing is real. Maybe UFOs can cloak themselves to be clouds or invisible. And there are secret bases in Sedona and Antarctica and elsewhere.
Right.
Um, what else that is unseen can actually manifest in the physical? And so that moment actually that moment specifically had a big impact on me. And so that's been a big thing with me, man. So it's crazy
Well,
that your dad died too, dude. I feel like I have so many friends in the last year whose dads have died as
mhm.
well. So I'm not sure if that's like a recency bias, like you buy a Prius and all of a sudden everyone has a Prius.
Everyone's got to praise you. Yeah.
Or maybe, and I don't know. And death isn't like buying a car, but like it is strange that I actually have like close friends whose dads have died. And so I've sort of, it's not like a group. We don't have a group chat, but like there is like a group of people that I know that I can talk to, who know what I've been going through, and I know what they've been going through on some level. So that's been deeply spiritual, dude. Like, have you experienced more positive spirituality, or like are you still like dealing with the death of your dad? Like, what's that been like for you?
I think that learning more about like spirituality and learning more about life after death and learning more about reincarnation,
Mm,
I feel at peace with it. I think you have moments, obviously, where you miss, where I miss my dad, of course. Like, a lot of times when I'm at the gym, if it's like super quiet in the gym, I'm not disturbing anybody. I like to just call people, like catch
mhm,
up, give my mom a call, give my sister a call, give some friends a call. Probably like 4 to 5 months ago, I went to give my dad a ring without even thinking about it. I just like it was just routine. That hits you, you know what I mean?
mhm,
Because you're like, fuck, he's not on the other end of the phone. But I think that I would say you're overdue for a medium reading. They say definitely don't do it for first 3 months because it's super raw, and it's still raw for me. My dad passed away in 2022, so you're on the raw end of the spectrum. Obviously, I have close friends whose fathers have passed. One of my friends when he was very young, one of my friends a couple years before mine, and we definitely we have like a dark sense of humor about it too. You know what I mean? I heard somewhere online it's like, who loves dead dad jokes? People whose dads are dead. Who doesn't love them? People whose
yeah,
dads are not dead, which makes complete sense. So
yeah,
my friends and I like when we get together, we can have some pretty dark humor, but like big Bill Burr fans and stuff like that.
oh yeah,
Um, so like that kind of humor like resonates with us, just sort of like direct, ridiculous, out there, inappropriate. So we joke around, which you kind of need. You need that in a
mhm,
way. But on the spiritual side, like I believe my dad was entranced by quantum mechanics, which is random, but he was like obsessed with it. He would watch documentary after documentary, like through the wormhole, learning about black holes, learning about space. Like he watched so many documentaries about that. He was obsessed with Star Trek. He was obsessed with Star Wars. So I do believe my dad was probably a Starseed as well, or
mhm,
probably Starseed Bros. The person who took it harder, I think, is my sister. The medium that we saw, and you can't believe everything that a medium tells you because sometimes their own thoughts can get in the way. But she said that my dad and my sister were soulmates. So my sister took it really, really hard. Like my sister, uh, she had to walk my dad's name was Bernard. We called him Bernie. She had to walk a dog named Bernie recently, and she was like hysterically crying over it.
mhm,
So, but I think what I envisioned for my dad is peace. And anytime I've seen a medium, the one uh, theme that comes up over and over again Also, in other medium readings I've watched, like Tyler Henry on Netflix, if you ever seen him, he's a very famous medium.
No.
You'd probably dig the show Surviving Death. That's a fucking crazy show. I don't know if it's all real, but they go in on mediums, and I really enjoyed that show. And the one theme that comes up time and time again is guilt. Guilt for not being there for them more,
Mhm.
thinking you could have done something, thinking you could have done, like, everybody has that. And like the message that comes back like again and again is the spirit, the soul doesn't want you to have that. It's a human manifested emotion. It's certainly not what the soul feels, because the soul, my father, your father, I mean, they're free. They're on fucking vacation right now, you know?
Mhm.
That's how I see it. Like, can't wait to get to where they are. I don't want to die. I want to keep experiencing this life. But so for me, obviously, like, you know, you have your moments where you profoundly miss that person. And it was tough for my dad, similar to your dad, because the deterioration was the worst part. There was, you know, and it's even hard to say out loud, but a slight relief when my dad died,
Mm.
because, you know, we had gotten to the point of like, we probably weren't far off where I would have had to like help him like change his underwear kind of vibe. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like he was at like the fucking end. Like, you know, just not using the bathroom the right way, not able to support himself when he was moving. So that's not how I want to remember my dad. You know what I mean? Like my dad was my hero. Like I always looked up to the guy. Super successful guy, busted his ass his whole life, great sense of humor, great family man, you know? So of course, you do have those moments, but I think what keeps me sane, what keeps me happy, what keeps me present is knowing that ultimately, one, he's with me, you know, and his life goes on. Two, we've known each other before. Three, we were meant to have the experience we were meant to have. And four, he's in a better place, you know, as they always say. Doesn't matter what religion you are, he's in a better place. So I guess that's where I sort of lie, you know, spiritually on that spectrum.
Mhm. It's so. I mean, I agree with you on all that, dude. It blows my mind how there's any sort of narrative that isn't that positive. Like, well, how come humans haven't always sought the most positive idea when it comes to these things? You know, it's like some people want to proclaim about hell, and some people want to proclaim of like life just ends and it's just blackness. It's like, why even entertain that? You know, because the idea of your dad being with you and there being a plan for the life that you lived with him, that's just so much more useful. It's just like
For sure. Yeah.
it's almost more practical than anything else. Like it's so practical. Like of course there was a plan. Of course my dad and I made a plan to become our human selves and live the life we lived and have the relationship that we did. And you know, and luckily my dad was loving, and the lessons and the message that he sort of left behind was that you're able to transform himself, you know, because he had his whole faith journey to get with my mom. My mom was a pastor's kid, and my dad was just a guy drinking beer and getting into fights. And he loved my mom so much, he was willing to change his life and go to church and, you know, change his perspective on things, change his behavior to be a bit more healthy so he could sustain a marriage and have kids and run a business. And you know, there being a plan for those things to happen, for that,
Mhm.
for those lessons to come forward, it just seems so much better to me than it just being random or it being it leading up to nothing. Like I don't know. So hopefully, like as we as humans move forward in time, I feel compelled to just like try to give people hope that that things are not random. You know, things are not just like willy nilly out here in space. Like there's actually a track. You know, there's some sort of a goal, and there's some sort of there's some sort of criteria when it comes to, or I should say, maybe curriculum. You know, you know what the lesson is, you know what the little details are, but how you implement it, how you really read about it, how you engage with it, that's life. And so it just seems more useful to me. So I just really appreciate that you're sort of experiencing something similar. That you know, there was a purpose to your dad living, and that was to engage with you and to just to live that good life with you, man. So good on you for understanding that, dude. That's a powerful thing.
Appreciate it, man.
um
Same to you.
Yeah, man. It's a crazy journey, dude. It's I didn't no one thought that like I'm not sure if anyone really thinks this, but like I would talk to my mom sometimes after he passed, and my mom would say things like, like 10 years ago, we weren't even thinking about this possibility.
Mm.
Like there, because I'm 28 right now, and she would say, Cole, there was nothing in my head that would make me think that when you're 27, you would have to not have a dad anymore. Like there's nothing because my family's very lucky. My grandparents are still alive, and so like it's like my grandparents lost a child, and the kids lost a father. It's like every generation was impacted by this, which is not like the common cycle of things. And it's like, so you never really think about what you're going to experience. You can never plan on that. And so it's just sort of surrendering to that, surrendering to like, I don't know what I'm going to experience, but I also have the capabilities of manifesting what I want to experience. And so, like, where I'm at now is like, I want to experience healing, and I want to experience immense growth from this. And I want this to just upgrade myself. I want my life to be upgraded from this experience and not deterred or anchored down or hindered in any way, shape, or form. Like, it's only going to help me. That's what I want. I don't feel that right now. Like, I feel sad and depressed, but like, I'm fighting towards that North Star. Like, this will bring me to something better. This will bring me to something brighter. So I don't know, just a random thought I had.
No, no. I mean, that's cool. I think you're spot on. I mean, I think in the immediate aftermath, and the aftermath period is whatever length of time that person requires. Grief is different for everybody. But no one is certainly thinking like, this is going to make me a better person. It's kind of like, well, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like, you don't think that in the moment, but I think
Mhm.
over time, as you come more at peace with it, it's still always a scar, right? Like it always kind of lives on you as like that scar tissue, but you end up just sort of crystallizing it and thinking about it in a different way. And you can maybe just have that half smirk on your face when, I don't know, you're like walking down the street and I see a restaurant named Bernie's out of nowhere. And I'm like, what's up,
Mhm.
Dad? And then you just kind of keep on keeping on, So it lives with you, but it lives with you in a different type of way. It's not pain and sorrow and depression and sadness, but a scar, but happiness, kind of looking back on it all. Because for
Mhm.
sure, like my dad died young. He was 68. I think
Mhm.
that's young. So never in a million years did I think I'm 36 now. So I didn't think I thought my parents would be around for fucking ever, man. You know what I mean? You don't think about that kind of stuff, It's just a blessed life. So
Mhm.
when it happens, it just, it shocks you. So for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I feel that way in terms of like random things hitting me. I felt they recently re-released that Star Wars movie, Revenge of the Sith, and like
Mhm.
my dad took me to that when that came out when I was 8 years old. So I was like rewatching that. I was like, I love this movie, but like it's
Oh, for
I,
sure.
I have that memory. I have that movie theater memory with my dad, and then I love movies, right? I moved out to LA to make movies, and my dad always supported that. And I have like these deep memories, just like core memories, of just like watching Mission Impossible with my dad. And so now we got this like the last Mission Impossible coming out right now. So like now I'm watching Tom Cruise interviews, thinking about my dad, like
Of course.
just silly stuff. Like thank you, Tom Cruise. It's that scene in Talladega Nights. Like help me, Tom Cruise.
No, I mean, I get that though, man. I mean, me and my dad went to the movie theater to see Star Wars for sure. I remember Jar Jar Binks, I forget which one, was in the movie, and I was like, "What's up with that guy?" And he was like, "Just watch the movie, Seth." You know what I mean? I was like super young. I just kept asking him questions.
Hell yeah, dude.
Um, so
That's
yeah, I mean, certain things trigger the memories for sure, but it leads to gratitude for the memories too, as well, which is
yes,
nice.
yes, yeah, man. A lot of gratitude. Focusing on gratitude. When it comes to your podcast, are you gonna get into like the spiritual soul side, or are you just gonna focus on the alien UFO stuff? What's that been like?
It's a good question. I definitely do want to get into the spiritual stuff. There was I frequent Reddit a lot to get advice on podcasting, and then there was a guy in New York City who works at a podcast studio that basically said like, "Hey, we're looking to make more relationships with people. Like, come in, like, have an hour on us, video and audio on the house." And I was like, "That's dope." So that was my first time doing video. That was very recently, and that was sort of an approach of like 5 unconventional but spiritual lessons, from TLDR. That's it.
Mhm,
Because
mhm,
we've all heard the have gratitude, meditate, journal, take a mental health day. They call it wellness days at my company now. Take a wellness day. Like all of that stuff has been said time and time again. So we've already talked about it. But to me, the spiritual stuff is like with reincarnation, that is super spiritual to me because I'm Jewish, for example, and I have family in Israel, and I'm sure that they are not fans of Palestinian people.
mhm,
I believe that if I was Jewish in this life, I was probably Palestinian in a past life. That's
mhm,
my belief. I've been every race, I've been every religion, I've been every color. So it's very silly to feel hatred towards people
mhm,
because you're just hating a different version of yourself in a different life. I
mhm.
believe that. So to me, that's quite spiritual because if all of a sudden the government came out and was like, "Hey, just so you guys know, you've been reincarnating forever, and the person that you hate was probably you last time," they'd be like, "Well, what the fuck are we fighting about?" You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so that's sort of my belief. Life after death, obviously, is everything we just talked about, and all the
Yeah.
sort of spiritual thoughts that come with that. I think a big thing that I took away from Cobb and the family of Tegeta is I often see them talk about giving and just like acts of service for other people. I run into a lot of sad characters here in New York City. Have some sort of like mental health condition, homeless, unwell. So I've tried to be more present in those moments because it's really easy in a city like New York City when it's so prevalent to be totally numb to those things.
Yeah.
You don't even like think about it. I remember like years ago, my friends and I left this improv class, and there was this man walking with a cane, and he was just hysterically crying, just hysterical. And like none of us even processed it. This is like a group of like 30 different people, every race, every religion, every demographic, and all 30 of us just kept walking, which is really insane if you think about it. Me too. Like I'm not proud thinking back on that. Something they talk about a lot from the family of Tegeta as well, which is like a pretty trippy concept, is the idea of buy local service. So they have this theory that they talk about, which is there are extraterrestrials that have the ability to both be in space and then at any given moment, kind of like an X-Men or something like that, populate themselves on Earth to be a human being, or to sort of shape shift in a kind of way for a particular reason. I feel like I have had, so when I did like a consultation with Judith, who is
Mhm.
Cobb's mom from the family of Tegeta, and she was like, "You have had experiences in your life where you have interacted with Pleiadians. You wouldn't know it because they wouldn't show up as a Pleiadian, but you've interacted with them." And of course, that could just be a person feeding me BS. But if I'm choosing to live in it and to believe in it, there have been moments in my life where people have come to my rescue or looked out for me or just spoken to me and have left a lasting impression on me. And maybe that person in that moment was an extraterrestrial just right in my face. Something that comes to mind is I was on the train years ago on the subway, and sometimes you just have strange interactions on the subway. There's a lot of unfortunate characters on the subway who need their own version of help. And this guy was just staring at me. He's just kind of like mean mugging me from across the train. Out of nowhere, he just looks at me and he goes, "Yo, I should fuck you up." Like he just says that to me out of nowhere. I'm literally just standing there, not saying a word, with my headphones on. And this other guy gets up like immediately and just like restrains the dude. He was like, "Don't like talk to him like that." Um, and just completely de-escalate the situation. Like before it could even move any further, he didn't acknowledge me. He didn't look at me, and then he was just gone. And I feel like I've had sort of these random moments throughout my life, It could just be, humans being kind. It could be these sort of like extraterrestrial connections. I don't know. I don't even know how I ended up on that thought, to be totally honest with you. But
That's a great
yeah.
story, dude. That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool, dude. I wish I could like point to a moment like that I had with that. Like that's really powerful, dude. I mean, I'm not sure if I've ever had an experience like that before, but I did do the consultation with Judith as well.
Oh, nice, nice.
I've paid that money. It's funny because like whenever people want to like be skeptical about these things, it's like, how,
Always hard. Of
like, what's the money side of it, and like what are they
course.
selling?
It's the
And
hardest
so,
part.
like, yeah, and I've sort of been like, well, they just have a buy me a coffee page. Like that's what you're
Right.
paying into. So it's like it's like, is that a cult? You know what I mean? It's like, how are you wasting your money if you give Tarantino's podcast money
Right.
or the spiritual lady money? But
It's a good point, though, and it is fair, right?
yeah,
The red flag definitely goes up when you just have these sort of like potentially all-knowing individuals sharing information that say, "Hey, you want to learn more? Give me money." I've had experiences with people that are
hmm
kind of like, "This looks pretty bad. You better give me $20 more so I can tell you." Right? So nothing has ever really given me pause to be like, "What's really going on here?" But you can't
yeah.
help but think. But anyway, please, I want to hear more about what you're going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say like $4 a month. You know, that's like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. We can
which
live with that.
yeah, which cults are $4 a month, dude? Please,
Not many, not many. Typical cult is rather expensive. I have extensive experience with many, so uh,
exactly.
recovering cult guy, and I really sank my life savings into those cults. But yeah, that's true. Did you
Uh,
do like the soul reading or whatever?
yeah, I did soul reading 1 and 2, and then I did a
Okay,
consultation. And so she told me she didn't tell me how many times I've incarnated. I also
I
didn't.
asked that one.
Yeah, you asked that? Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
not ask. I forget the questions that I clearly asked, but I remember for like the soul name reveal,
yeah.
my soul's name is Liasaki. So
That's a good one.
I thought that was cool. I sound like a samurai in the
Yeah, that's got some. I think mine is Ipikiso Umakatek. First time I ever said it out loud. I named my headphones that. One on my Bluetooth.
That's Sony's new brand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
That
anytime I pull it off, I'm like, there you go. What's up, bro?
that's awesome, dude.
Did you find out if you were a Starseed? Did she tell you that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she said my soul's name is Liasaki and I'm from Solano and
That's
I
in
or
the Pleiades.
yeah, Pleiades.
Nice.
And I should have asked more clarifying questions, I guess. I think I need to do it again because like
It's a trippy experience. It's
yeah.
like I was told I had like 19 children and I
Yeah.
had a home that was octagon shaped and there's dragons flying around. I mean, it's the kind
Yeah.
of thing where it's like you read it and you're like, you kind of like Job in Arrested Development. I've made a huge mistake. You have that thought because like obviously logic dictates like this is crazy, like this
Yeah,
is
dude.
fucking nuts.
She told me that my
um
house was made from a single crystal. I have a
right,
statue of the elder of Solano in my house. I got
right.
giraffes running in my backyard, and
Fairies, just
yeah,
like crazy shit.
yeah,
Like
I
that's like so deep down the rabbit hole, so it's crazy, but it is interesting of like
very
I
interesting.
said to her, I was like, you said that my soul origin was of the Pleiades. Can you please confirm? Does that mean I'm a star seed? And then she obviously said yes. And I was like, damn. I was like, so is that what this is all about? Is this like obsession? Is this drive to learn more? Is this also me being just a fucking weird human? You know what I mean? You know how many years it took me to understand how to socialize with people,
Mhm.
understand how to like read people, understand how to like be in a relationship. Like I used to watch the show Dexter when I was younger, and he's a killer. I'm not a murderer.
But
I
you felt
promise.
like that. But
Yeah.
you felt like
I
that.
I felt the disconnect that he felt often. Like, how
Mhm.
do people so comfortably interact with each other? And I like, I'm older now, but I felt that sort of like misunderstanding of humanity, not on this deep like I don't know why people are nicer to each other. Just like I just don't get you guys. Like I just don't
Mhm.
get you. So I think like as I learned more about starseeds up to that point, because they talk about it a lot on Reddit, like I never felt homesickness. I never had extraterrestrial contact to my knowledge. I never felt like my home was somewhere else. But I did always sort of feel this like strange word, alienation. You know what I mean? Just sort
Mhm.
of like we're not the same, but we're different. And
Mhm.
not in me thinking about myself in some special kind of way, but more so just like feeling out of place. So
Mhm.
to hear that, I think was very interesting for me. And then all of a sudden, I'm making a podcast about it being like, this is the all knowing. Go get a fucking soul. I've had friends. I'm like, go get a soul reading, bro. I'm like, let's find out. You a starseed or not? I
Yeah.
made my sister do it.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm super into it.
Wow. That's cool, dude. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I did. I got to go to her again because it was actually fairly useful stuff. What she gave me for like advice and like creating and things like this. But you know, I didn't do it. I think the last time I did it was like December, so maybe I should just save up some cash, save up that $33, and I'll do it again.
yeah, yeah. Save that cash. I mean, she encouraged me to keep going with my podcast. She
Yeah.
specifically said that. I asked her. I was like, I used to do like there's so many opportunities to do stand-up comedy in New York City. So I used to like jump to a bunch of open mics. I had a couple
Mhm.
friends who are into it as well. You could go down one block and just, hit like multiple mics. So I
Mhm.
used to do a lot of stand-up. I used to do a lot of improv. I used to do a lot of like humor writing, just like
Mhm.
writing in general. So I was kind of saying to her, like, like I want to find like my creative outlet. Like I feel good when I create. And then she specifically was like, I want to encourage you to keep going with your podcast. So to me, that was like,
Mhm.
hey, if that's what Judith says, then
Yeah.
Cap, let's keep
Yeah.
going.
Aye. Yeah, I got to be more specific with my questions. Like sometimes my questions are very general. It was like I think one question I had was like, "How can I maximize my life?" Like just some super
Right.
general thing.
I get that though.
Yeah, like I just not knowing exactly what to ask. You know that's been like sometimes a an issue for me, like not knowing the exact question to ask, or I sometimes ponder on like, am I asking the right question to myself? Or like before any of this, before I even moved out to LA, I would always think about like, am I praying the right prayer? Am I
Mm.
thinking about God the right way? And so like I sort of get caught up in that sometimes. I get caught up in my own head and thoughts.
I mean, I think it makes sense. I didn't really know what to ask her either.
Hmm.
If I was using ChatGPT a lot back then, I probably would have been like, what are some good questions to ask an oracle? Like I didn't really have them top of mind. I think what I became obsessed with was I had seen a lot of practitioners. Like when I got like super into it wasn't aliens first, it was just, alien like people, mediums, tarot, astrologer, like whatever, channelers. I just like I literally was like meeting with animal communicators, people that called themselves pet psychics, authors, people that did regression therapy that helped you remember extraterrestrial contact if you had it before. People who remembered their past lives, people who had children who remembered their past lives. Like I met with like so many fucking people, man. And that's something that's cool about like the UFO, alien, spiritual community is like since I think people are coming more open to it, but since and to some people it's a little bit like social suicide is the wrong way to put it, but like since some people view it that way,
Yeah.
you can access some unbelievable people in this space more easy. Like I'm not going to go on a podcast with LeBron James tomorrow,
Yeah.
but realistically, I can find some really cool people in this space that really might not be far off from being the LeBron James of the space,
Yeah.
which is like really dope to me. And I had a lot of great conversations and reached out to a lot of really cool like authors. Barbara Lamb was one person I reached out to. I don't know if she's still practicing, but Barbara was like one of the first people I saw in a documentary. She was in a documentary called "E.T.'s Among Us." I think it was number 4, and I met with her, and she was like, the director just gave me the mic and told me to talk, and she was the first person I ever saw ever talk about extraterrestrials in a positive way, and I thought that was like super captivating. So
Hmm.
then, like, she does regression therapy. So if people would get abducted by the Greys, as you might know, the Greys would then wipe those memories or put screen memories in so they didn't remember. So I thought maybe since I was so obsessed, I had been abducted. So I like hired her for a session to see if I was. That wasn't the case, but it was still just like a super cool experience. I don't even know how I ended up on that point though. Where were we at the beginning of that?
Uh,
Who even knows?
I don't
Um,
even remember. I'm just
uh,
vibing.
no, yeah, but I mean, I guess also thinking back towards Judith, oh, that's where I came from. I became obsessed with understanding, are these people I'm interacting with frauds?
Yeah.
That's what I really wanted to know. Here's this person's Instagram. Here's their website. Are they legit? Because I've been taking their word in many ways as gospel. And
Hmm.
there was one person I've been interacting with. I don't want to, get too in the weeds of that person's identity, because
Hmm.
even if what they were doing wasn't legit, I don't need to, dox them. But, or maybe I should, I don't know. But Judith was kind of like, I watched what you just sent me and it made me laugh out loud. This is not legitimate. I don't want to come off negative. I don't want to come off like a hater, in layman's terms,
Hmm.
but do not give your person that money. And that was kind of like, God damn. And then there's the wrestling of like, but should I be giving you money? Like, can I really
Right.
trust you?
Right. So she was
So you
telling
don't know.
you to not pay someone for spiritual information, and that was like a little thing for you, like.
That became like the rabbit hole for me. I was like, well, what do
Right.
you mean? Because I've been spending a lot of time with this person. I've been not only I was sort of doing with this person like I would help them out with like aspects of their business, and then
Mhm.
they would give me like spiritual advice. And one thing that this person did was not only mediumship but also channeling. So it
Mhm.
was like a rather like uh profound thing to witness when they would
Mhm.
do it. Um, to my understanding, the promises this person was making, the things on their website were illegitimate. So that was kind of like a, oh shit. But then also, like, from my wife's perspective, it was like, you shouldn't just listen to one person tell you it's not legit and then that's just the word.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like where I went with that. And then also just the fascination of like, who are these undercover Pleiadians I've been interacting with? Like,
Yeah.
who could that be? And there's more that are in my head too of just these random encounters I've had that were like just crazy.
Mhm. So what do you think about, like, the immediate future, dude? Like, uh, are you sort of just, like, disconnected from the world now because you have information about the quote unquote "coming shift to New Earth"? And, like, how do you think about your life, like, day by day? Like, are you struggling with finding meaning if you think this is all gonna happen? Like, what's that been like for you?
No, I mean, I think something that's interesting that Judith kind of shared, again, not to keep bringing up the family of Tegeta, but I do love them. Is like, as time goes on, the human side of you aligns with the soul side of
Mm,
you,
mm,
which really just is like, it's like the ultimate like phoenix rising metaphor. Like, you become more of who you truly are. My identity as Seth is not truly who I am. My identity allegedly is, the extraterrestrial, the starseed in origin. So as
yeah.
time goes on, I feel like I know myself better. I become more of who I was meant to be, and perhaps
Mhm,
closer to whatever my purpose might be, which could be just talking about this kind of stuff, helping
mhm,
bridge a gap between the insanity of how it sounds and the reality of it. So I think that. I also think that, I mean, listen, man, Cobb like talks a lot about like what's to come, and some of it is sobering, right? Like, just so you guys know, this is his words, like, there's gonna be more fighting, there's gonna be more strife, there's gonna be more economic challenges. Things are going to be at their absolute worst before their best. I mean, he posted at one point, he was like, I'd recommend having 3 weeks worth of food, 3 weeks worth of water. I'd have
mhm,
a weapon for protection. I would have preparation if there was a blackout. You're like, holy shit. Like, and what's funny is because, like, when my dad was younger, we lived in the suburbs, and Hurricane Sandy came through. It
mhm,
didn't hit us too bad, thank God. But my dad was obsessed with having a generator, like obsessed. And we would roast him. We'd be like, what do we need a generator for, you doomsday prepper? Like, what are you talking about? All of a sudden, we didn't have power for 3 weeks, and the guy was, a hero. So I think, my wife thinks it's strange when I'm like ordering extra cases of water to stuff into a little closet in our apartment. She's like, "What are you doing, you nut job?"
mhm,
So I think that you straddle the line between, I'm becoming more of who I am. I'm growing spiritually. I'm learning to put myself out there. I'm attracting people that are within my tribe, within my community. You know, it is possible that we know each other and we're just two alien homies that used to hang out, and we're on a little journey here together on, you know, in life, and having our dead dads and struggling a little bit at times. But didn't mean that in a bad way, obviously.
No,
But
Dead Dad Club. I'm a part
the
of it.
dad club, you are a part of it, man, and you are more than welcome to be a part of it. You're still new. You're only 10 months deep, but you know, you're putting the work in. I'm kidding. But
I'm paying my dues still.
you're paying your dues. You're paying, and my friends say I'm paying. You know, one of my best friends, his dad died when he was 8, and he always makes like ridiculous jokes. Like I don't know if you ever watched Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Yeah.
but there's a moment in Curb where Larry David says, "Let's roll," and he like claps his hand, and then a rabbi he's with gets really offended. He's like, "How could you say that?" He's like, "You knew my father or someone died on 9/11." And Larry's like, with all due respect, he was on 57th Street. It's just ridiculous. So like one of my buddies, like I'll just say random stuff. I'll be like, man, like I could go for Chinese food tonight. He could be like, how could you say that? Like you knew my dad loved Chinese. You know, just like stupid. You know, like his dad died when he was 8, and we'll just joke around like that. But
That's
I
funny.
think I think over time, hopefully, what we're going to see more of is more crafts in the skies, more conversations on social media, more people starting to get it, more people realizing something's up. I think, unfortunately, twisted in that is going to be a little bit of mayhem, a little bit of chaos. I think it's going to be really, really important in those times to kind of like, you know, cleanse your aura, meditate, get your sunlight, ground your feet in grass. I don't know, you know, whatever gets you back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an all knowing person. I'm not an oracle. I don't know shit, right? But I do. I'm certainly, you know, an investigator, right? So that's what I've investigated. So I think be prepared, but also do what you love, right? If theoretically, you know, all this is going to be gone. I've seen on Cobb's website 2030 because, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the cabal has evil plans or something like that. You know, if that's really true and all that crazy stuff is true, then I mean, it
I
almost
want
reminds me of
I
go
want
ahead.
I want the shift to happen like before the Olympics. That's just like some weird thing with me. Like I would love to have some like perfected world by 2028, and then LA would be awesome somehow.
That would be dope.
I mean,
Yeah, I've heard 20. I mean, something on his site is like the cabal has some sort of plan to do some evil shit by 2030,
yeah.
and they're going to go for it anyway because they know they have nothing to lose because the shift is going to happen. But allegedly, there is a, you know, a plan to move things along. You know, obviously, like conversations of how my wife, she's like, okay, so let's say 2030 comes around, then all of a sudden Cobb is like, you know, due to an error in the system, it's going to be another 5 years. How are you going to feel? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. I might not be so happy. You know what I mean? Might be
Yeah.
like, there were promises made, Cobb.
Yeah.
Get me the fuck off planet Earth for starters.
Yeah.
But I think we'll see. You know, I don't think I'm uh, all knowing enough to be like, here's what I would do, podcast listeners, if I was you. But hopefully, some of we discussed along the way can be applicable to people. You know?
Mhm. Yeah, man, it's just something I've been like sort of struggling with right now, and maybe just because I'm still grieving. You know, it's that those emotions are still so fresh. The ideas of just like future and just like living my life. You know, I'm just sort of just this guy in LA working. I'm just working at a kitchen. You know, I'm just like a prep cook at a steakhouse, and it's like I have these other goals of making movies, and then I see the industry is like changing and morphing, and it's like, well, I don't really care about like the system at large. I don't care about being liked by Hollywood. I just want to like express myself. That's always been my biggest thing. I just want to tell the stories that I want to tell, and I want to make sure I'm expressing myself and directing and being a good leader for my people who are around me, and wanting that system to be somewhat fair. You know, I don't want to like screw anyone over. I want my people to be paid well, but it's like, how can that even happen when everything is going to change and everything is like sort of crumbling? And it's just like, I've been sort of like caught in between of like negative emotions of like what's happening and the destruction of things, but then believing that there will be a more beautiful world coming into view soon, and just like trying to just pay my freaking bills at the same time. It's
Right.
like, damn, how do I even? And then it's like, I should manifest a better life for myself. Okay, how do I
Right.
fucking do that? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't even. You know, it's. it's like I know what to do, but I don't know what to do. And I love doing this podcast, and I love making movies. And it's like I've made 2 short films, and I can tell
Nice.
you with a clear conscience that the making of those short films, I felt at peace, and it was like time didn't exist, and it was just like a beautiful creation. I was able to focus on something that I was just able to focus on creating something, and that brought real joy to myself. And it's like, how do I do that on a bigger scale? How do I just how can I thrive while doing something that I love? And then I guess there's this fear that I have of that not being able to be accomplished. Like I have to have a normal job. I have to, at least I need a full-time job, because the movie thing is not full-time. And so, it's just like random stuff like that keeps circling through my head of like, how can I actually do this when it's going to get worse?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely resonates, right? I think I have days where I wake up and I have anxiety, and there are things on my to-do list, personal, professional. And, like I remember I was talking to one of my buddies one time, who was in a new relationship, and he's like super skeptical. And I was like kind of talking to him about aliens. And he had been saying to me for a while he felt really uncomfortable taking like a shit at his girlfriend's apartment. He was like, we're just not there yet. He's like, I just feel genuinely uncomfortable. So I was like selling him on aliens. I was like, dude, you got to believe this stuff. I mean, this is really life changing. And then he was like, great, I believe it. But guess what? Still got to pay bills and still feel weird taking a shit in my girlfriend's apartment. And I was like, man, if there's ever a fucking honest PSA, right? So I think I resonate with that, right? Like I want to make money. I want to grow my career. I want to do a good job. I want to have nice things. I want to travel. If my mom ever needs help, I want to help her out. Same with
Yeah,
my sister,
yeah.
anything like that, right? I want to have that stuff. I think, there are like small moments. Like I was at like a dog park recently because my sister was walking a dog. She's like a dog walker. That's a whole nother thing, by the way. She's like totally like a pet psychic. But
Cool.
uh, um, there was just like this interaction in the park where people were just like fucking like jarring at each other. Like all these really nice people with like fangs in their mouth all of a sudden because like one dog like attacked another dog, and the owner got upset and the other owner got upset. And nobody was taking accountability. And there was this like maddening energy,
Mm.
just chaos, and so many different people and so many different opinions. And that was the first time where I had a moment where I was like, maybe we're getting closer, man. Because these people are acting fucking crazy. Like I was just looking around and I was like, I don't even know what's being fought about right now. I don't think they do either. So I think you have those moments like of just like, where do I land then? Right. Like I want to make a podcast, like, but I need to pay bills. So I think it's challenging, man. I think I resonate with all of that. I think I guess more than anything else, I try to stay present, not to be
Yeah.
an advice giver, but I think I agree with you. I try to stay present.
Yeah. But you've been paying your bills in New York City. Like that's one of like you and I are in like the hardest cities.
Oh God, city's kicking our asses, man.
Yeah. Like what the fuck are we doing? Are we even smart? Like, are we,
No, we're just signing up for pain. Like when I look at like my credit card statement, bro, like or the fucking monthly bills, I'm like, why on earth am I
yeah.
living here? My buddy moved to Arizona like years ago and got like a
Hmm.
beautiful house that he put a mortgage on.
Hmm.
It's like, and then he sold it and he made a fucking chunk of money.
Of
And I
course.
was like, I thought he was a dumbass. I was like, man, you're moving to a desert. And I was
Nope.
like, well played. What was my dumbass doing thinking, oh, it'll be cool to live above a restaurant in Chinatown? You know what I mean? Like, the fuck was I thinking? So,
He moved to
anyway,
a desert of money.
moved to a desert of fucking just straight money, bro. So well done. Good job, Perry, if you're listening. Um, so, yeah.
Yeah, man. If I could buy a house, I totally would. I would move back to Arizona for sure and just buy a house. Um, or just pay off my mom's house, because that's
Yeah,
where my sister still live and stuff. Um,
for
w-
sure.
i- i-
Goals.
your family lives just like outside the city. Is that what you said?
Yeah, my mom right now lives about a hour outside of the city.
Mm,
After my dad passed, she was kind of just like fuck it. She moved to a really nice little beach town on Long Island. just kind of living her best life, reliving her youth, going on dates. I was like, more power to you, mom. Fucking have at it. My sister actually lives probably like 50 blocks away from me here in New York City.
Cool.
She was a digital nomad for many years, and she finally settled down. Also decided to experience some pain and come to New York City.
Yeah, man, I'm the only one in my family who's like moved out. My sister still live at home. My one sister has a kid. The other sister, she's just working, but they're just like, just doing their thing, helping my mom. Everyone's still moving through the motions of trying to grieve. So it's like I'm also caught in between of like, should I move back there and like help them out if they need to? It's like I don't want to like because I don't want to be selfish, It's like moving out here was totally like because of myself. But now that it like in this current era, it's like, okay, should I where are my priorities? Like as a man, like should I move back and help my family? Do they really need that? Is that like a wise choice? So I'm actually seeing my family this coming week. So we're going to discuss that. I don't think I'll move back, but it's like, it's just one of those things that I'm thinking about, it's like the priorities of life. Like, how can I be present and like, what's the best version of myself staying present, I mean, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I struggle with that too. It's kind of like I saw when I saw the tarot reader, she said something very interesting to me. She said that after my dad, I lost the ability to be able to be needed by people. She
Mhm.
was like, you were needed on such a deep level for so long, from the most basic things like a trip to the bathroom to eating to carrying this guy's ass to the hospital, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so she's like, you don't have that ability anymore. You cannot handle being needed, not in a critical way. And I was like, damn, that's some real shit. Um, so I think for me, that was also a good realization of like boundaries, you know? Like
Yeah.
I do want to spend time with family and friends, but I also got to recharge sometimes, man. Like after a long day at work, I need the TV and just to relax or
Mhm.
whatever it is. So I think you do what you can, you know, and sometimes that's enough, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. It's real stuff, dude.
Real as hell.
How much time do you have left? We said we're gonna do like 90 minutes, but I'm sort of vibing. Do you have like 30 more minutes, or do you got to head out?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
I'm
right on.
chilling. Would I don't know if we'd be able to edit this, but I'd love to take a leak and then maybe come
Oh
right
yeah,
back if
dude. Yeah, if
that's
you got to
cool.
use the restroom, yeah, go for it. Go for it. You're
Okay.
totally good. Go for it.
All right. All right.
Okay, so we've talked about a little bit of what Cabe has talked about with like clones and stuff. I was just on my email, and the New York Times just broke that it says Biden has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. Like
Wow.
just now. And Cabe has talked about how President Biden was a clone the entire
Right.
time. So it looks like they're
Yes.
about to kill off the clone. What do you think about the clone situation? What do you think about the Biden clone presidency?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the $1 million, like, let's go down the, you know, the furthest edges of the conspiracy theory hole, right? I've definitely looked into this a lot. I've researched it so much. I've looked at like all of Cobb's posts. I have 2 episodes that I'm going to drop about it in the near future. But I mean, it's wild, man. It's a wild concept, you know? It's actually funny. Biden was at a restaurant, literally, I could throw a rock at it down the block from me. So I was like, is there a clone at the restaurant?
Yeah,
Um,
there is.
Yeah, in fact, there is. I think. What do I think? For me, one of the most interesting. It's like the more you look at it, the more you're just like, huh. You know, that's kind of the feelings that you have.
Yeah.
Like for example, years ago, Hillary Clinton. I don't know if you ever saw this or heard this. Was on a podcast through BuzzFeed. I forget the name of the podcast, but one of the hosts, I think her name was Heben, Heben. She was like, you know, Hillary, I have watched a lot of your, um, you know, like press, and I'm so impressed by you because you like always kind of keep your composure. This isn't an exact quote, obviously, but she's like, I also noticed you like physically do not sweat, like ever. Any other person's like, we are the sweatiest people, you know, like we are very sweaty, you know, humans are sweatiest mammals on the planet, whatever, like makes a joke. And then Hillary goes, she's like, you're actually the first people to realize I'm not even human. which is funny. It's actually funny. They all laugh. But then she says, I was actually constructed in a garage in Palo Alto by a man who shall remain unnamed. And, people think I'm like something I'm not. And then it was kind of like, what the fuck?
What? I've never
Yeah,
seen
like,
that in my life. That's crazy.
yeah. So she said that. And when I saw that on Cobb's website, that was weird. And then another thing that was weird with Hillary Clinton was there was like a rally in like 2016 and she just like froze. She just like
Mhm.
stopped talking. All right. People freeze up sometimes. Maybe she's nervous. Maybe she doesn't feel well. She could be elderly, whatever. Then a guy rushes on stage. His name was Todd Madison. And he says to her, keep talking, keep talking.
Mhm.
And you hear it in the microphone. First of all, why is he doing that? Why is he telling a human being to keep talking? It's weird. Then, like a week later, Todd Madison was dead. Um, so what's going on there? So my thoughts on it are, I mean, listen, when you hear Cobb talk about it, he says there's a billion clones in existence. Like a billion, one out of every six people or whatever. It's like,
One
shut
eighth,
the fuck up.
of Earth is clones. That's crazy.
Yeah. Like, come on, there's no fucking way. And then there are moments like Janelle Monáe, singer,
Oh
if
yeah,
you're familiar with her,
yeah. I saw
who
that clip. I saw that clip. She has a clone
yeah,
for music, a clone for movies,
yes,
a clone for
yes.
press. Yeah, that's
And then I think, yeah, it's just like, I mean, it's crazy. And then I think like I just started looking into a more of like, for example, Cobb had said that Will Smith's clone was the one who slapped Chris Rock. He was like,
oh,
why would
oh.
Will Smith ruin his reputation? Clones have been known to have outbursts of anger.
Yo, that makes sense though. Because
Kind of does make
why
sense.
would Will Smith do that? Like that was always the question. Like because the whole
There's
like
no good reason,
because Chris Rock at the Oscars makes a little joke, and it's like,
which was funny.
yeah, it was funny, and everyone there knows it's all in good faith.
Of
And why would
course. I mean,
like
everyone gets roasted at these events.
exactly? And why would Chris Rock want to pick a fight with a guy in the front
Yeah,
row
it's
as well?
also his homie. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
they've
they're
known each other for
friendly.
decades. So
Yeah.
that makes so much. I did not read that, so that makes so much sense that the Will Smith slap was Will Smith's clone.
That was what he said. And then he would just talk a lot about there was one thing he posted which was like Zac Efron decides to publicly respond to criticisms that he got plastic surgery because his
Mhm.
face looked really puffy.
Yeah.
And Cobb like posted a screenshot of like the TikTok clip, and like the top comment had like 13,000 likes from a person who wrote like, "Is this one of those things where they're fronting a clone?" So that was a surprising moment to me because I was like, "Wow, I guess more people are thinking this than
Yeah.
I realized that
Well, then, yeah, and then it's
clones
also been
exist."
for another celebrity. It's also been very discussed, just like online, of Kanye having a clone. You can see
Yeah,
weird pictures of him with like no eyebrows and puffiness, and just like he just looks strange. And it's like, okay, well, and then he has like multiple songs of like him, or not songs per se, but like live performances where he adds in like, watch how they cloned me or something like that, or it's like Yeezy, not the clones. It's like he's referenced that before as well, which is really interesting.
yeah, I actually have to look into that. I remember reading from Cobb at one point that he said something like Kanye went to Trump for help
Hmm.
and Trump like helped him, and because of that, he had this like allegiance to Trump.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't know if he has clones. Obviously, I don't know anything, but like, yeah, I've also saw an interesting clip that Cobb shared at one point too was Jim Carrey going on, I think Jimmy Kimmel,
Hmm.
and he like kind of keeps
Hmm.
putting up like the Illuminati sign and
Yeah.
like sticking his tongue through it, and he's just kind of talking about how like we're all being deceived and like life isn't
Hmm.
what you think it is, and that
Hmm.
because he went on the show they like killed him, threatened his girlfriend, and then made a clone of him. Said
Mhm.
they made a clone of Robert De Niro that's like
Mhm.
super anti-Trump. So I mean, it's tough. I think it's tough also because, dude, I live in New York City. You live in LA. People are
Mhm.
not pro-Trump out here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that is like talking about Trump. I mean, especially at my past job, if you brought up Trump, your ass would be talking to HR. Like there
Yeah.
is such an intense
Right.
distaste for Trump, for anything
Yeah.
conservative,
Yeah.
Republican, to like an intense degree. My wife would probably not even like it if she knew I was talking about it right now. Like she'd be like, "You probably shouldn't say that, Seth," you know? And she is so down with me expressing my creativity. Like I could do
Mhm.
anything, you know? She's awesome. But it's more just the idea of like, she also isn't a fan, you know? Like a
Yeah.
lot of people think he's not nice to women. A lot of people think he's a
Yeah.
bully. So it's interesting, you know, seeing Cobb because when I first came across him, he's talking about clones. He's talking about how Trump is like a reincarnated like archangel. He's talking about how like
Which is the
his
complete opposite of how people who hate Trump speak of him. Like, it's the
of
complete
course
opposite
they
because
call. I mean,
Hitler.
dude, I'm in conversations at this table right here on a monthly basis at least where we have a my wife's best friend is gay and he's in a relationship with a guy and they'll
Mhm.
come over and we'll have dinner and you know when this Trump stuff was going on he was getting hired like they were like bugging the fuck out they were like upset you know
Mhm. Mhm.
and this is New York City. This is a very liberal place. So that's kind of the sentiment everywhere. So that's like when talking about this stuff, like dangerous is the wrong word, but like I'm not gonna run around to people and be like, Trump's not who you think he is. You know what I mean? Like, and then obviously, like sometimes some people that are huge fans of him can be perceived in a certain way, you know, by
Mhm.
liberals as there's like one guy where my mom lives who has like a bunch of flags and then he has like a picture of like Biden being shot in the head and you know people look at that and they're like that's a little intense. So it
Mhm.
was interesting for me sort of like going through this metamorphosis of like what are my beliefs? Like
Mhm.
where do I lean? And I, you know, was so gravitated towards everything Cobb said. I'm like maybe I just need to reevaluate like everything that I ever thought to be true, which
Mhm.
is obviously just like a pretty wild thought. Not only do aliens exist, not only are there multiple races, not only have I lived lives before, not only does life exist after death, not only could I be a fucking alien, but the life I'm currently living, the government's lying to me. Trump is actually a great guy who's being, you know, whacked by the fucking media, run by a bunch of like cabal Satanists. True
Mhm.
Detective season one was actually more realistic than anybody wants to give it credit for. You know, like there's like a horrible ring of like murders and terrible things happening to even children and
Mhm.
um, a lot of that is being run by like evil reptilians who like broke
Mhm.
away from a galactic federation, one of whom was a reptilian.
Yep.
So it's like when you kind of say all that out loud, you're like, maybe I need to up my Lexapro really quick because I guess I sound a little fucking crazy. You know what I mean? And there's not many people you can say that to at all
Yeah.
that are going to be like, "Oh yeah, for sure, Seth. Like, can I get you another drink?" You know, they're going to be like, "Get the fuck out of my apartment." So it's always been like a struggle of mine, but you know, I've been down like every single one of those rabbit holes. So what do I think in terms of clones? Sometimes I feel like when I'm talking to fucking people I work with, I'm like, "Are you a fucking clone?"
Yeah.
Because you're pretty fucking robotic, and
Yep.
not robotic like socially awkward. Like the way you're looking at me doesn't even make sense. Like
Yeah.
are you all there? You
Yeah.
know? And then I'm like, what the hell are you saying? Like in your own head. Like,
Mhm.
just go do your job, Seth. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What do you think?
The clone thing was a bit difficult for me at first, but then at a certain moment it just clicked. Especially when people during Biden's presidency was trying to point to him like being in a mask, and Cabe pointing out that it's not a mask.
Right.
And I listened to this one podcast. They deconstruct mainstream media, so they pull in clips and they sort of like look for the tells, if they're lying or something like that. And they were they were pretty heavy on talking about the masks and how like masks are very common and how the CIA uses masks all the time. And but then I was also just like seeing on YouTube, there was like a TED talk with someone who used to work for the CIA talking about masks, and I'm like, if they're talking about masks out in the open, why would they be like using them right now if they're telling us how to
Right.
identify the mask? So it's like if we're able to identify the mask, doesn't that mean that they're not using masks? And then I just kept on looking at the clone theory, and it's like, yeah, dude, like, and there's a bunch of images where you can see like it's like 6 different images of Biden like back to back to back, and they all sort of look differently, and you can sort of tell when it's like 2018 Biden or like 2015 Biden,
Yeah,
2018,
yeah. Different
2020.
products, if you will.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I think Cabe had a post of like Biden might have died or he was like about to die in 2019, and the way that you would know that is when they push his clone to be president, and then you have the 2020 election, and Biden was in the basement for all of COVID, and they said it was because of COVID, but it's like, why do you need to be in the basement when you are rich and you have a home and like you have, why are you in the basement when you have a home? Like, who are you hiding from? And you're on Zoom. And so
Right.
like that was just like suspicious to me. And then it was mainly just like seeing the images of the different Bidens and how
Yeah.
and the variability of how he looked. It wasn't just normal old man, because you can pull up like do the same type of format of images and just do it with Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood looks pretty consistent between 2018 and 2025. You'll see some aging, but the variability was huge. So like some are puffy, some are really wrinkly, some are just like stupid looking, like some like uh, just incredibly different versions of him. And
Right.
then just like the idea of like the cabal using clones to push their narratives and to
Yeah.
program certain things, and it becomes more and more clear it's not just propaganda in the news media that wants you to be fearful or wants you to be angry. It's literal people who are programmed to discuss those things. It's not just a script, it's like a program that people are simulating across their different circles, and that's why different people believe these like fearful narratives of Donald Trump. It's because of these clones that are programmed with these things. So I definitely believe it. I am looking out for more clones myself, like because I think clones are actually just a lot more practical. I actually did an episode of this on this podcast last year about specifically about the clones. I read the whole clone post from Cabe, and the main thing that I like come back to is when you're thinking about this topic, if you think it's not true, then you're going to have to say that the scientific community voluntarily obeyed Bill Clinton in 1997, because there's a
Mm.
clip that you can find
Like
on
set to
YouTube.
stop. Right.
Yeah, and June 8th, 1997, Bill Clinton called for a voluntary moratorium
Yep.
on research on human cloning. And
Right.
so if you think human clones aren't real, then that means that the scientific community volunteered to not do research. And it's like, well, that it's like for me, just like thinking logically, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound logical at all. Like if I was a scientist and I had access, it's that whole Oppenheimer conversation of like, if we can do it, should we do it? And
Right.
and scientists are always wanting to move forward. They always want to do it because of, I don't know, whatever reason, curiosity, just making those types of breakthroughs. If I was a scientist, I might be interested in making a human clone.
Yeah.
So
Shit. Why
like,
not?
yeah, exactly. Why not?
It's the peak
Uh,
of your career, probably. And it's also strange to think that um, cloning was introduced to us by aliens,
yeah.
right? Like
hmm
1950s. What was it?
Eisenhower.
Eisenhower, yeah, has a meeting with the Greys, and the douche is basically like, "All right, you can go abduct whoever you want. Just teach us how to clone people, right?" And it's like,
Yeah.
are the Greys the alpha of the universe? Absolutely not. But do the Greys have technological prowess beyond our wildest imagination as humans? Without
Mhm.
question. How do you
Mhm.
think a billion clones potentially walk around the Earth undetected?
Mhm.
So crazy to think that. It also reminds me of Cobb posted this clip not long ago of a woman. I think she was like maybe South African, maybe claiming to have been on Epstein Island, and she saw Michael Bay there,
Oh
and
yeah.
that yeah, and
Yeah.
not long after Michael Michael Bay was with Epstein, Michael Bay wrote, I believe, and directed the movie The Island.
Mhm.
I don't know if you ever saw the movie. I saw the movie when I was in high school, and it's always funny how things connect. You know what I mean? Like War of the Worlds. When I saw War of the Worlds, 2005, I was in
Mhm.
Pennsylvania. That shit like lived in my soul.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that was fucking cool. When I
Yeah.
saw Signs 2002, I was
Mhm.
like, damn, that was fucking. You know what I mean? It's like if I'm a starseed, is there a reason these things connect with me so much? When
Yeah.
I saw The Island, it wasn't even a good movie. It didn't
Yeah.
get good reviews, but holy shit, did that shit live in my DNA? I was like, that was fucking bananas.
Yeah.
And is it because maybe, there's this part of me that knows deep in my soul, right, that this is real, that there
Mhm.
actually are genuinely clones. Another interesting clone theory is Britney Spears. And because
Mhm.
Cobb talked about how, if you remember when she shaved her head,
Yeah.
like out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden she's on camera with the paparazzi. She's like an umbrella in her hand, and she's just smashing a
Mhm.
car door. And he was saying like clones are often prone to angry outbursts for whatever reason. Will
Mhm.
Smith, Britney Spears, and obviously all of the weird shit going on with Britney Spears. You talked about how Britney Spears recorded a song called Mona Lisa,
Mhm.
and in the song Mona Lisa, one of the lyrics was, "She's been cloned, she's been cloned, she's been cloned," which, whatever, it's just a lyric. I could have written that allegedly.
Mhm.
But I guess she wasn't allowed to release it, and then eventually did release it, but they made her change the lyrics. So it's like, has this poor woman always been trying to communicate to us all this time? And it's also the insanity of cloning, because I've heard from Cobb, and even I've reached out to people that follow Cobb. Anybody who fucking follows Cobb. A lot of these people on Twitter have what are allegedly their starseed names, like the ones we talked about. I've messaged
Mhm.
any of them that are willing to respond when I first got into this, because I
Mhm.
wanted to just learn and understand as much as I could.
Mhm.
Um, just going down that rabbit hole. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second, but
Did they have a connection to cloning, or like what was that? Did you ask them about the clones?
I asked this one girl about it, and she was like, "You should watch the movie Replicas with Keanu Reeves." She was like,
Mhm.
"That's a really good demonstration of what cloning looks like." And then she was just kind of going into conspiracy theory. She was like, "Bill Gates is a bad person. Elon Musk is, reincarnated starseed. The pandemic was all planned. You should look into the WikiLeaks." And I was just like, "Whoa!" Like, I just
Mhm.
wanted to say, "What's up?" You know what I mean? Um, so that went heavy. But oh yeah, kind of going back to is this idea of like cloning becomes interesting specifically for the music industry because it's so lucrative. So you have musicians. One that I've read about is Katy Perry.
Mhm.
Katy Perry, apparently Orlando Bloom is not a good guy, and neither is Katy Perry. And Russell Brand and Katy Perry got together, and then Russell Brand was like, "Whoa, you satanic fucking witch! Like, I'm
Mhm.
out." And then he looked like a dick when it was really kind of
Mhm.
her doing. But these musicians get surrounded by people that want money. Britney Spears' family, her own dad, her own mom, sister, whatever, fucking sold her out, cloned her, kept her in a goddamn box just for money, you know? It's
Yeah.
like crazy. So the more you go down these rabbit holes, and then when you get into like the really fucked up stuff, like the Pizzagate and like
Mhm.
pedophilia and stuff like that, you're like, man, I can't even read this shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to have a chill Sunday afternoon, you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Yeah.
how is this even fucking real? So I mean, I guess circling back to it all, it's like, do I believe in it all? I don't think I want to, but I'd be lying if I said that the information, doesn't captivate me in such a way that makes me think I do in fact believe,
Yeah. Yeah. Did that so how did that like affect you like thinking about Trump? You brought up Trump earlier. I mean, I don't even care if like you didn't like Trump before, but like was there
Right.
how did that um has this information or like was there a change in how you thought about Trump in the last year and a half?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely. I feel like honestly, man, like politics wise, like I've always been like pretty down the middle. I don't really like having like intense political conversations. Like usually I try to see both sides. Like I'll say it like I do believe that like if a woman wants to have an abortion, she should have an abortion. But if someone is religious or Christian and doesn't believe that, like no hatred on that. To me, I'm like, shit, man, I've never had to squeeze a baby out my vagina, so you can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm
Yeah.
half the man you are, lady, you know? So, um, but I've always leaned to just I watch show like The Handmaid's Tale. If you ever seen it with like my wife, and like it's a little scary sometimes. Like, could
Yeah.
this be reality? So, I always just try to be supportive of my wife and stuff like that. But as far as Trump, it was cool to not like Trump. It
Yeah.
was cool to shit on Trump. It
Yeah.
was cool to say he was dumb or pompous or an idiot. That's the cool thing to do. At my jobs when I was in the office, water cooler talk, it
Mhm.
was cool to shit on him.
Mhm.
That's what you did. You didn't even think about it. That's just
Mhm.
what was happening in any circle I ran with whatsoever. You never even got a hint that somebody was Republican. And if you did, you knew that they knew to keep it to themselves. And maybe that's indicative of the circles I was running with at the time. I have never been like super outspoken on either side. Really, I haven't.
Mhm.
So then to be introduced it to Cobb, it was just like, damn, like that is the polar opposite of what I've been around, what I've been taught, what like dates that I've gone on, relationships that I've been in. Like that has been just ingrained in me.
Mhm.
So I think that was like a weird transition. Now, if I'm being honest, like, listen, man, if I'm taking Cobb at his word, if we're calling that gospel, like, I gotta believe that, like, this dude is looking out for us. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of really fucking shady people out there. And Trump's a tough motherfucker. And Cobb has
Mhm.
said before, he's not perfect. He has his moments, but
Mhm.
you needed a guy that was tough. You needed a guy who had the financial resources and the savvy
Mhm.
to kind of take on, what he's up against, which is
Yeah.
some pretty wild shit. So it's weird to say out loud. It really is. You're never going to see me, running down the street with a MAGA hat on because in the neighborhood I live in, like people will be like, what the fuck is he doing? Like Larry
Yeah.
David had an episode about that. He put a
That's
MAGA
one of
hat
my
on.
favorite episodes, dude. He
Yeah.
puts on so no one talks to him.
Nobody wants anything to do with him. That's kind of like LA, New York. Like that's what I'm around. I rarely even come across like outright Trumpers. I really don't. I've come
Mhm.
across them a lot more. And the irony of it is that as I kind of started to let my freak flag fly on Twitter, just like a little bit, like tweeting about clones, tweeting about starseeds, tweeting about random alien races,
Mhm.
tweeting about starseeds, tweeting about the Greys, the types of people that would follow me would be like QAnon, like conspiracy theorist
Yeah.
believer, like MAGA mom, like
Mhm.
Trump forever. And I was like, huh, that's so interesting. So it's like the message that I believe in that I'm putting out there is actually completely aligned with people that have voted for and believe in Trump. So
Mhm.
it's interesting, man. I mean, it's the sort of thing that constantly causes you to reevaluate. But again, like all I really know is that I know nothing. So I'd be silly to be so steadfast on like this is right and this is wrong. So I
Yeah.
think I've certainly converted to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a personal journey with that as well. Like my first election was 2016, and I voted for Hillary. I wouldn't say that I was like I guess I was influenced by the media. I was influenced by there was a YouTuber who was like super viral at the time, Casey Neistat, and he
Mhm.
put out a pro Hillary video, and I was like, and I sort of just like agreed with him, and um just didn't like the way how Trump was. And then 2020, I was protesting everything. And I wrote in Kanye West. I really liked his Joe Rogan experience episode. And so I wrote in him. And then as the Biden presidency moved on, the truth of like him being of Trump not being the full on bad guy, you know, and him just like evaluating like what his real actions are, and looking at how, you know, COVID and the whole Biden presidency was so extreme on the negative side, I would say.
Right.
I ended up realizing it was like coming into like 2020, late 2023 and early 2024. I was mainly just thinking about Trump in terms of economics. I was like, I think I got to vote for Trump just so my bank account is okay.
Yeah.
Because like I remember like during his first term, I was like, I was doing pretty good. The economy was pretty good. I was a tour guide, and tours were going pretty well, and people were traveling, and you know, and Biden's presidency, like no one's traveling. You know, very few people are doing that, and so
Right.
it was more about the economics for me. But then I'm reading Cabe, and then I'm reading about like how he's actually a good guy. And it wasn't until the assassination attempt happened is when like I actually had a like real opinion or real like emotion towards the guy's presence, because like it's that meme, you know, it's that head turning meme of like you're like a centimeter away from civil war. You know, it's
Right.
like, wow, the bullet was really that close to hitting Trump and killing him.
Right.
And that man, like I don't know how else to interpret a miracle. I don't know how else to like think of how a miracle could happen than almost being murdered by someone who's 150 yards away from you. And it's like,
Right.
wow, he really just turned his head at the right moment. And then he stood up and he put his fist up, and like just the most badass scenario ever. Like, and there's no way around that. Like, there's liberals have to admit that that's a badass thing to do. Like, you get shot at, your face is bloody, and you put your fist up saying fight, fight, fight. Like, that rallied everyone, dude. That was crazy. And so just like that happening, like, wow, he's actually protected. He's actually protected. And if he's protected, what does that mean? And who is he protected by? And then Cabe has information about, you know, the angels being there, both in by local service and Archangel Michael coming in and calming the crowd with his hand, and someone turning Trump's head at the perfect moment, and just that happening for a reason, and him being protected for that reason, so people could see that and come together. And you know, and that I think that's a real line in the sand of like, who is wishing death upon a person, you know. And that it's like I also extend that to the wars going on right now. You know, if you're able to justify death, you know, like, where are your morals? If you want the president to die, where are your morals? If you want Israel or Hamas to die, where are your morals? You know, it's like war. If war is demonic, if murdering someone is evil, you know, then that means that no one should be murdered for any reason, you know. And that's a very hard thing to sort of conceptualize and solidify for yourself. But you know, I definitely agree with that sort of idea at large. And so it was mainly just like that, and just like seeing him being protected, and just like realizing, okay, so he's protected from assassination attempts, and Kamala's an idiot, and she might be a clone, and Biden's a clone. Like, there's no choice but Trump. I'm choosing the human being.
Right. Right.
That was another thing for me. I'm like, oh, okay, so my choice is a clone or a human. I'm going to choose a human. Duh.
Yeah. Probably go for the human on that one.
Yeah, I do. And he wants to make America great again. Like, that's a great slogan. Like, let's just say,
That's a great
say
slogan.
that. So,
Yeah, can't deny that one.
and I ended up buying a hat. I just felt like it was iconic. I had to buy the hat just for myself. It's on my desk. I don't wear it out. I only wear it when I go to Arizona, because that's like safe country. If I wore it in California, it might be a little different.
Yeah.
but I myself have experienced like people's attitudes have changed towards Trump because I think it's getting more and more clear that he doesn't want people to be harmed. You know, he doesn't support war. He wants people to make money. You know, it's like a practical thing. It's like he wants practical things to be the establishment. You know, and it's like, you know, that's just like where I'm at with it. But I definitely I had a tide turning within my own self, just realizing that morality comes down to your actions, you know, and what are this man's actions? What has he really done? You know, during his first term, his biggest accomplishment was the Abraham Accords, which was peace in the Middle East, you know, and that I forget if that was like solidified or if something fell apart with that, but regardless, like they were at the table. I remember seeing press conferences of the Abraham Accords being discussed. And it's like that's a huge accomplishment, you know, and that's something that's totally different from all the other administrations that have justified war in the Middle East and have, you know, just like done that. Um, so yeah, the idea of morality being tied to your actions or like morality being objective, that's been a big thing with me with Trump. Just like seeing like what is he really doing and what are these other people really doing, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, all
Morality,
interesting stuff. Yeah.
aliens.
Yeah. So that's the crazy thing. It's kind of like all, tied together.
Yeah.
Um, and it is crazy. Like the further you go down the rabbit hole, it's like what you kind of um, uncover, you know,
Mhm.
and it
Yeah.
does make you question everything.
Yeah. Well, Seth, I feel like wrapping things up right now, dude. It's been a fucking awesome conversation with you, man. Thank you
For
so much.
sure, man. Of course.
Um,
Been awesome for me too. Thank you for having me.
yeah, man. Is there anything else that like is on your mind right now that you want to discuss about Cabe or like anything else on your mind, dude? Anything else?
Hmm. I feel like we covered pretty solid ground from starseeds to clones to political conspiracy theories to the grays. There's a lot of good stuff also in like ancient times and negative aliens that like broke away from the Galactic Federation. But we talked about mediums. To me, it was just this is a great sort of like dive into all the stuff that has captivated me for so many years. Um, so
Yeah.
I feel like we nailed it, brother.
Dope, dude. And you talk about all this on your podcast, right? The spiritual skeptic.
Yes, yes, the spiritual skeptic. So if you dug anything you heard today, then I dive into all this on my podcast with a hell of a lot of irreverent humor and definitely a lot of sort of investigative journalism as well. I really try to make sure that anything I talk about that I have like tons of sources cited because I know people appreciate like evidence or stuff to back it up, if you will. I'm obviously not showing live videos of UFO from New York City, but I am making sure to read up on this stuff a lot. So if I do talk about it, there's at least some basis behind it.
Dope, man. Is there a schedule for your podcast? When do you release episodes?
Yeah, I definitely need to drop that on Twitter. I've been kind of doing a cadence of like once every 3 weeks, which I know is a fair amount of time between each episode. This first season has really just been like probably like my love letter to like aliens and conspiracy theories. It took me a long time to like write out each episode and kind of like refine it. I worked with a really awesome editor as well to get like some like sound effects in there and make sure it sounded good and some music and stuff like that too. His name's Lewis Palfrey. Shout out to him. He's a freaking genius, probably a Starseed too. I was lucky enough to meet him on Reddit. But yeah, once every 3 weeks, and then hoping to get more involved, with conversations like fine gentlemen like yourself and talk about these things more and, maybe release future seasons, just other guests and stuff like that.
Yeah, man, dude. I want more of your episodes, dude. Like your stuff is funny. I love the sound effects. Like shout out to Lewis, dude. Like the how you edit, how you script it, you can tell that there's effort in it. And it's like a just really satisfying. It's a really satisfying way to consume this type of content because no one else is doing it like you do, man. Like everyone else is like they make it like a horror movie, but you're making it like a cozy little sitcom of these aliens coming to Earth. I love that, dude. So
Appreciate that, man. I got to quote that somewhere.
thank you for making what you do, dude. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for making what you do, man. Your podcast is awesome, and it's obviously inspiring. You've come out with a ton of episodes, had some guests to do a lot of cool solo stuff, and you're obviously really good at what you do. So just want to get on your level and put myself out there more and all that kind of stuff. So appreciate the love, and right back at you.
Hey, man. Okay, so we got to do this again sometime. We got to do this. I would love to talk to you more. So
yeah, that'd be dope. I would love to.
And let's just create together, dude. We'll find a way.
Yeah, for sure. I got a homie out in LA right now, doing writing full time. You guys should definitely connect.
Okay, dope. Yeah, I would love to connect with them. I need to make a movie, so I need a writer.
Yeah, well, he's a brilliant writer, so you guys could definitely be a good potential partnership.
Well, dope, dude. Well, thank you again, Seth. I'll stop recording right now.